Maple Street, in the last calm and reflective moment, before the monsters came. At the sound of the roar and the flash of light, it will be precisely 6:43 p.m. on Maple Street.
Steve, what was that?
I guess it was a meteor, honey. Came awful close, didn't it?
Much too close. Steve, the power's off. I had the soup on the stove, and the stove just stopped working.
I'll cut across the backyard, see if the power is still on Floral Street.
I'll take a run downtown. Maybe I can get it straightened out.
Yeah.
Mr. Brand? Mr. Brand, please don't leave here. You might not even be able to get to town. It was that way in the story. Nobody could leave. They sent 4 people, a mother and a father and 2 kids who looked just like humans. But they weren't.
Car started somehow.
He never did come out to look at that thing that flew overhead. He wasn't even interested.
He always was an oddball.
Yeah, why didn't he come out with the rest of us to look?
What do you say we go ask him?
Wait a minute! Now, let's not be a mob.
What's happening?
Well, maybe you better tell us.
How do you figure it started, Les?
The whole thing is just weird.
Well, if that's the case, Les Goodman, then explain why you...
Look, let's just forget it.
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let her talk. Go ahead, explain what.
Well, a couple of times I've come out on my porch, and I've seen Les Goodman here, standing in his yard, just looking up at the sky. As though he were looking for something.
You scared, frightened rabbits, you. You're sick people, do you know that? And you don't even know what you're starting here, because let me tell you, you're starting something here that's what you should be frightened of.
Yeah, I think maybe everything might as well come out now. Your wife's been doing a little talking, Steve, about some of the odd things you've been doing.
Go ahead. What's my wife said? Let's get it all out. Let's pick out every idiosyncrasy of every man, woman, and child on this whole street. You're all set to find a scapegoat. You're all desperate to point some kind of a finger at a neighbor.
Well, there's no need getting so upset, Steve.
It's the monster. It's the monster.
What a shotgun. Will somebody think a thought around here? What good is a shotgun?
Don't talk, Steve. You're gonna talk us right into a grave. You'd let whatever's out there walk right over us, wouldn't you? Well, some of us won't.
It's Pete Van Horn.
Charlie, you killed him.
How was I supposed to know who he was? Didn't know.
Look! Charlie? Charlie, the lights just went on in your house.
It's Bob Weaver's house!
It isn't Bob Weaver's place. It's Don's house!
What's the matter with you people? Now stop!
Understand the procedure now? Throw them into darkness for a few hours and then sit back and watch the pattern. They pick the most dangerous enemy they can find, and it's themselves.
Then I take it this place is not unique.
By no means. Their world is full of Maple Streets. And we'll go from one to the other and let them destroy themselves.
The tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, prejudices. For the record, prejudices can kill, and a thoughtless, frightened search for a scapegoat has a fallout all of its own. And the pity of it is that these things cannot be confined to the Twilight Zone.
Hello guys, welcome to another video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate all my views. all my subscribers, and all the people who take the time to just check in to just see what my videos are about. And hopefully you do like this content. I try to mix it up as much as I can, and the topics and events that are important to me, I hope, are also important to you. Yeah, so I just really appreciate your support, and I hope that I will continue to be able to make videos and produce better quality videos in the future, more elaborate videos. I have a lot of goals once we get through these strange days, okay? But prayer warriors, just keep praying, and we have to just keep the faith in all things. So without further ado, today's video is about evolution. I have been contending with different people on the internet, for years, but recently, the past few days. And I love going back to the Library of Congress to see what is in the archives. What do they have to say about all of this years ago when our grandparents or great-grandparents were living or being, when they were younger, and the things that they had to endure during that time as far as philosophies and just the times. What were they talking about? How did they feel? What did they believe in? And I ran across this article, and it's from the County Record Kingstree, dated July 6, 1922. Reverend W.I. Sinnott. And I think, this is a South Carolina newspaper. So in this article, he basically lays it all out. He tells it like it is. He defines and, in my opinion, clears up the whole argument. The whole evolution debate of what it is. Really, when it comes down to it, is nature versus, or should I say, natural versus supernatural. Natural versus supernatural. So keep that in mind. So when he goes into, I'm just going to, of course, just read a few of the excerpts. The great thing about the Library of Congress is that it does highlight the word that you're looking for. So if you're doing a search, all I did was I clicked on newspapers for the periodical type, and then the keyword evolution, and so it just highlights the word evolution in all the articles that you're trying to search up, which of course makes it a lot easier to navigate and to search. And so there you have it. But so Reverend Sinnott, he wrote this article, and he starts off saying, God has given man two sources of knowledge, nature or the world, which the Greeks called cosmos, and the Bible. Knowledge of the cosmos, which classified, or should I say, knowledge of the cosmos when classified in science using the word with a restricted meaning, knowledge of God and his relation to the cosmos, is theology, most of which knowledge comes from the Bible, and much of it is higher than nature, and it is therefore supernatural. Theology is the queen of the sciences, using the word science in its broadest meaning. Philosophy embraces in its domain all knowledge both of the cosmos and of the Bible. Three doctrines are advocated about God: atheism, deism, and theism. Atheism exists in three forms. Atheism, an extreme form which denies that God exists; agnosticism, which says that one can know nothing about God; and pantheism, which says everything is God, or an emanation from God, but God is only it and has no attributes of personality. Deism, in its highest form, affirms that God is a being infinite and eternal in wisdom, intellect, and power, but emotion and affection do not exist in him. In a supernatural way, he created a machine, the cosmos, gave it properties and powers, ordained the method of law in its operation, started it in motion, and left it to operate according to the law. Now, sadly, this person believes in the heliocentric model, but I'll forgive him. But it goes on. Under deism, it is proper to praise God, but useless to petition or ask him for anything in prayer. Deism defines free agency. It teaches fatalism. Theism agrees with deism that God is infinite and eternal in intellect and will, but affirms that he has emotions and affections, that he is everywhere present and everywhere active, and that he has intervened by miracle in the past. Then you get down here, it says, he shows his love for man. He answers petitions and prayer whenever in his wisdom. He sees this to be best. Okay, evolution is a hypothesis. Read it again. Evolution is a hypothesis in philosophy by which, as a method, the present order of things, especially in life, is explained. It is found in two forms, atheistic and deistic evolution. Atheistic evolution denies a creator and assumes the eternity of matter, though some atheists affirm the eternity of mind or of matter and mind. Both, but usually its doctrine is materialism. Matter contains in itself latent life, which in due time is emanated in the lowest variety from which by evolution every living being, vegetable and animal, is descended. Okay. Goes on. Okay, deistic evolution agrees with the atheistic evolution except that it demands a creator and lawgiver. There are many variations of these two hypotheses, but the two given are the only ones that can claim a fair degree of consistency. The so-called theistic evolution is impossible, because if God never intervenes supernaturally, it is not theistic. If he ever intervenes after the creation of the first varieties of life, it is not evolution. Let's read that again. The so-called theistic evolution, that's the one that's the most controversial, and I agree. The so-called theistic evolution is impossible because if God never intervenes supernaturally, it is not theistic. If he ever intervenes after the creation of the first varieties of life, it is not evolution. The argument for evolution in a few words is as follows. The internal power in life to produce variations when combined with external power, environmental, climate, food, etc. Natural selection and the survival of the fittest produce all the genera or species, and heredity fixes the genera. It is claimed that the evidence of higher forms of life as you ascend in time in the geological record proves evolution. A concrete case of evolutionary argument is given in Appleton's Cyclopaedia of 1901, in which Professor Kingsley, formerly of Tufts College, later the University of Illinois, tells us that at certain stages of growth, man differs nothing from the frog, the dog, the ape. Therefore, man is the son of the ape, the grandson of the dog, and the great-grandson of the frog or tadpole. Even if Professor Kingsley is right in regard to the chemical elements and anatomical structure of man's body, a scientific question which only the chemist and physiologist can decide. There is a vital difference between man and the brute, and that difference is in life itself. It's torn inside. Life, in its essence, is a secret which God has not revealed to man, and therefore all the biologists of the world know no more what life, it's cut off so I can't really, than the illiterate plowman. The life is than the illiterate plowman, I guess. There are difficulties in the hypothesis, maybe, of evolution that prevent the theologian and the philosopher from accepting it. It cannot be harmonized with the Bible. In Genesis, there are separate creative facts. In the beginning, the herb and the tree precede the seed. Evolution requires the seed to precede the tree. Man, one male and one female, was made in the image of God, after his likeness, and God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, physical, mental, and spiritual. Life came from the Spirit of God. Evolution teaches that men are born of brutes, that the life of mankind is involved brute life. Jesus Christ, the divine man, was begotten supernatural. By evolution, I think that's teaches. It's a little begotten. Okay, by evolution teaches that he is only the highest result of evolution thus far. Regeneration, the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, and the resurrection with a spiritual body are supernatural doctrines. Evolution denies them. Evolution is opposed by the fact of degeneration. Let me say that again. Number 2, evolution is opposed by the fact of degeneration. Plants and brutes improved by man, the free agent, always degenerate when left to the blind forces of nature. 3, there are no instances of the evolution of one genus into another today, nor in the past, since man has been writing history. The evolutionist is under obligation to show either that natural forces will transmute one genus into a higher genus, or that this transmutation has actually occurred in specific cases. He has done neither. 4, other branches of knowledge besides theology, Psiology, ethics, and logic are opposed to evolution. No hypothesis in philosophy is true if any branch of knowledge shows it to be impossible. Okay, they're going on and on about the different sectors of science and branches of science. But when it says evolution, no hypothesis in philosophy is true if any branch of knowledge shows it to be impossible. It is a hypothesis in philosophy that in its 2,500 years or more, the existence has never reached the dignity of a theory. The Brahmin of India, the oldest branch of our doesn't make sense, of our for Thales the Greek 6 centuries before Christ. The Greeks, the most intellectual race of the world, taught it. For Thales the Greek 6 centuries before Christ taught that all things were evolved from water. And Anaximenes, I'm butchering these names, I'm so sorry, from air, Hervilidius from fire. The Latin poet Lucretius taught the method of evolution, the fortuitous concourse of atoms. Lamarck, the great Frenchman, made advances in the doctrine, but it was reserved for Darwin. Darwin in 1859 and 1871, so to present the doctrine after patient investigation as to make it popular. And while Darwinism has been exploded, a large proportion of scientific teachers still hold to evolution. A tree is known by its fruit. Darwin in early life had a decided talent for music and poetry. Okay. So devotion to evolution resulted in an atrophy of his powers so that he lost the power to enjoy music, and Shakespeare, the world's greatest poet. So before, in his earlier life, he had a talent for music and poetry and was somewhat religious, but then devotion to evolution. This is what evolution does to you. Evolution resulted in an atrophy of his power so that he lost the power to enjoy music and Shakespeare, the world's, because you know what? Evolution is a dead religion. It is about death. Death is what you look forward to. It is just basically some dying off, the dying off of one replaced by another, and then that thing dies off, and then that. So it's a cult of death, in my opinion. That is what it represents. Okay, so it goes on to talk about what evolution has done to different people, people who used to be religious. I'm going to have the link for this article so you guys can check it out on your own a little later, whenever you have the time to do so. But this is deep. It just goes to basically everything that we're talking about still today. They were talking about 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I'm sure 1,000, 2,000 years ago, as long as there's been this debate, for false religion to come in and under the guise of science. So, just how evolution, it causes you to lose your, I'm not going to say you can lose your soul, because as someone pointed out, Jesus paid for our sins, for us, anyone who would freely come to him, their souls are saved. But what we do when we reject him is we basically don't acknowledge the soul. We just let it die. We just let it in a figurative sense of the word, because our souls will never die because that's eternal. But your soul is what you feel in your soul. That is what it's that spiritual nature in you, that you get your joy, your deep-rooted joy, and your gifts that God has given you, and you can use that because it's flowing out of you from your soul, the creative nature that God has given. But just like Darwin, they said that he used to love music, and he was at least reading the Bible. He was a Christian, but as he got deeper into evolution, he lost all of that. He lost his love for music, the arts, and for God. It's so dangerous. There's another article, but I wanted to go back to this other one. Where did I say it? It was an article that I just saw. It was weird. These are just fascinating, I'm telling you. Did I lose the article? I guess so. Let me shrink it. Okay. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay. All right. Yeah. So right here, it says to prevent a cold, take 666. What in the world was 666? Demonic. The other thing is this Freemason symbol at the bottom that I saw. Meets the second Thursday night in each month. Visiting brethren cordially invited. H.U. Kenda. Donald Montgomery, secretary. Yep, the compass and the square. Everywhere. No matter how small that town is, you better believe they're going to have a Freemason hall. Right? I mean, that's just, they're everywhere. Okay, let's go out of this. Okay, and yeah, this second article is from August 26th, 1898. And this article, it is Infidelity. Dr. Talmage takes stand against evolution of Darwin and Huxley. Okay, so basically it says Dr. Talmage, among other things, said there is no contest between genuine science and revelation. The same God who by the hand of prophet wrote on parchment, by the hand of the storm wrote on the rock. Who gave us magnetic telegraphy? Professor Morse, a Christian. Who swung the lightnings under the sea, cabling the continents together? Cyrus W. Field, the Christian. Who discovered the anesthetical properties of chloroform, doing more for the relief of human pain than any man that ever lived, driving back 9/10 of the horrors of surgery? James Simpson of Edinburgh, as eminent for piety as for science, on weekdays in the university lecturing on profoundest scientific subjects, and on Sabbaths preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ to the masses of Edinburgh. At the present time, the air is filled with social and platform and pulpit talk about evolution, and it is high time that the people who have not time to make investigation for themselves understand that evolution in the first place is up and down, out and out, infidelity. In the second place, it is contrary to the facts of science. And in the third place, that it is brutalizing in its tendencies. I do not argue that this is a genuine book. I do not say that the Bible is worthy of any kind of credence. Those are subjects for other Sabbaths. But I want you to understand that Thomas Paine and Hume and Voltaire no more thoroughly disbelieve the Holy Scriptures than do all the leading scientists who believe in evolution. And when I say scientists, of course, I do not mean literary men or theologians who in essay or in sermon and without giving their life to scientific investigations look at the subject on this side or that. By scientists, I mean those who have a specialty in that direction and who through zoological garden and aquarium and astronomical observatory give their life to the study of the physical earth, its planets, and its animals, and the regions beyond so far as optical instruments have explored them. I put upon the witness stand, living and dead, the leading evolutionists: Ernst Haeckel, John Stuart Mill, Huxley, Tyndall, Darwin, Spencer. On the witness stand, ye men of science, living and dead, answer these questions. Do you believe the Holy Scriptures? No. And so they say all. Do you believe the Bible story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden? No. And so they say all. Do you believe the miracles of the Old and New Testament? No, and so they say all. Do you believe that Jesus Christ died to save the nations? No, and so they say all. Do you believe in the regenerating power of the Holy Ghost? No, and so they say all. Do you believe that human supplication directed heavenward ever makes any difference? No, and so they say all. Herbert Spencer, in the only address he made in this country, in this very first sentence, ascribes his physical ailments. Let me just get this a little bigger. His physical ailments to fate, and the authorized report of that address begins the word fate with a big F. Professor Haeckel, in the very first page of his 2 great volumes, sneers at the Bible as a so-called revelation. Tyndall, in his famous prayer test, defied the whole of Christendom to show that human supplication made any difference in the result of things. John Stuart Mill wrote elaborately against Christianity, and to show that his rejection of it was complete, ordered this epitaph for his tombstone. Most unhappy. Huxley said that at the first reading of Darwin's book, he was convinced of the fact that teleology, I don't know if that's supposed to be theology or, teleology, maybe I'm just unfamiliar with this word. Teleology had received its death blow at the hand of Mr. Darwin. All the leading scientists who believe in evolution, without one exception the world over, are infidel. I say nothing against infidelity, mind you. I only wish to define the belief and meaning of the rejection. Now I put opposite each other to show that evolution is infidelity. The Bible account of how the human race started and the evolutionist account of how the human race started. Bible account, God said, let us make man in our image. God created man in his own image, male and female created he them. He breathed into him the breath of life. The whole story setting forth the idea that it was not a perfect Kangura, or a perfect orangutan, but a perfect man. That is the Bible account, the evolutionist account. Away back in the ages, there were 4 or 5 primal germs of seminal spores from which all the living creatures have been evolved. Go way back, and there you will find a vegetable stuff that might be called a mushroom. This mushroom, by innate force, develops a tadpole. The tadpole, by innate force, develops a pollywog. The pollywog develops a fish, and the fish, by natural force, develops into a reptile. The reptile develops into a quadruped. The reptile develops into a quadruped. The quadruped develops into a baboon. The baboon develops into a man. Darwin says that the human hand is only a fish's fin developed. He says that the human lungs are only a swim bladder showing that we once floated or were amphibious. He says the human ear could once have been moved by force of will, just as a horse lifts its ear at a frightful object. He says the human race were originally web-footed, from primal germ to tadpole, from tadpole to fish, from fish to reptile, from reptile to wolf, from wolf to chimpanzee, and from chimpanzee to man. Now, if anybody says that the Bible account of the starting of the human race and the evolutionist account of the starting of the human race are the same accounts, he makes an appalling misrepresentation. Prefer, if you will, Darwin's Origin of Species to the book of Genesis, but no, you are an infidel. As for myself, as Herbert Spencer was not present at the creation and the Lord Almighty was present, I prefer to take the divine account as to what really occurred on that occasion, to show that this evolution is only an attempt to eject God and to postpone him and to put him clear out of reach. I ask a question or two. The baboon made the man, and the wolf made the baboon, and the reptile made the quadruped, and the fish made the reptile, and the tadpole made the fish, and the primal germ made the tadpole. Who made the primal germ? Most of the evolutionists say, we don't know. Others say it made itself. Others say it was spontaneous generation. There is not one of them who will fairly and openly and frankly and emphatically say God made it. The nearest to a direct answer is that made by Herbert Spencer, in which he says it was made by the great unknowable mystery. But here comes Huxley with a cup of protoplasm to explain the thing. This protoplasm, he says, is primal life-giving quality with which the race way back in the ages was started. With his protoplasm, he proposes to explain everything. Dear Mr. Huxley, who made the protoplasm? To show you that evolution is infidel, I place the Bible account of how the brute creation was started opposite to the evolutionist account of the way the brute creation was started. Bible account, you know, the Bible tells how that the birds were made at one time and the cattle made at another time and the fish made at another time, and that each brought forth after its kind. Evolutionists account from 4 or 5 primal germs or seminal spores all the living creatures evolved. Hundreds of thousands of species of insects or reptiles, of beasts, of fish, from 4 germs. A statement flatly contradicting not only the Bible, but the very ABC of science. A species never develops into anything but its own species. Where have I heard that before? Let's see. I think the Bible, about the kinds. Yes, that's right. In all the ages and all the world, there has never been an exception to it. The shark never comes of a whale, nor the pigeon of a vulture, nor the butterfly of a wasp. Species never cross over. If there be an attempt at it, it is hybrid, and the hybrid is always sterile and has no descendants. Oh my goodness. Let me say this again. If there be an attempt at it, it is hybrid, and the hybrid is always sterile and has no descendants. These men of science tell us that 100,000 species came from 4, when the law all through the universe is that starting in one species, it keeps on in that species, and there would be only 4 now if there had been 4 all starting, or at starting. If I should say to you that the world is flat and that a circle and a square are the same, and that, okay, I would come just as near to the truth as when these evolutionists tell you that 100,000, oh, poor child. Well, okay, so you guys are going to get a kick out of this. So as much as I'm on board with him evolution-wise, he gets to this part where he says, this whole article sounds like Kent Hovind, what his argument is, because this pastor rejects the flat earth. He believes in the heliocentric model. So when he's actually poking fun, he's saying, if I should say to you that the world is flat and that a circle and a square are the same, and that twice 2 make 15, I would come just as near the truth as when these evolutionists tell you that 100,000 species came from 4. Okay, we can agree to disagree about flat earth, but going back to evolution, it says evolution would have been left out of the question with its theory flatly contradicting all observation and all science, Had not its authors and their disciples been so set on ejecting God from the universe and destroying the Bible that they will go to any length, though it lead them into idiotic absurdity. You see what the Bible teaches in regard to it. I have shown you also what evolution teaches in regard to it. Agassiz says that he found, and okay, I'm not going to read that. So go into, okay, to show that evolution is infidel, I place also the Bible account of how worlds were made opposite the evolutionist account of how worlds were made. Bible account, God made two great lights, the one to rule the day, the other to rule the night. He made the stars also. Evolutionist account, way back in the ages, there was a fire mist or stardust, and this fire mist cooled off into granite, and then this granite by earthquake and by storm and by light was shaped into mountains and valleys and seas, and so what was originally fire must become what we call the earth. Who made the fire mist? Who set the fire mist to world making? Who cooled off the fire mist into granite? You have pushed God some 60 million or 70 million miles from the earth, but he is too near yet for the health of evolution. So these infidel evolutionists go wandering up and down, guessing through the universe. Anything to push away back from Jehovah, or back Jehovah from his empire, and make the one book, which is his communication to the soul of the human race, appear obsolete and delusive. But I am glad to know that while some of these scientists have gone into evolution, there are many that do not believe it. Among them, the man who by most is considered the greatest scientist we ever had this side of the water, Agassiz, a name that makes every intelligent man the earth over uncover. I'm going to put the links in the description for you to check these out yourself. But it's just fascinating. It's just so truthful and just the opposite of what, because back then it was more believed that creationism existed. But as time went on, in the field of academia and the universities, they made sure that they had these Darwinist, Darwinism, or what do you call it? Darwinian evolutionists, I guess. I don't know. People who believe in Darwin's theory of evolution. They wanted them to be in the key roles and positions in these universities to make sure that all of this was mandatory required teachings. And of course, they had to make sure that the middle schools and the high schools taught it as well. But very, very fascinating. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and post this, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please, as always, I ask that if you are not a subscriber, please consider being my newest subscriber today, and I would truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will hope to see you very soon. You guys take care.